Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Connor, Boyes,
Aye.
Hannah.
Aye.
All committee members are present.
Thank you very much. I'd like to entertain a motion. We accept the minutes of the last meeting.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. Okay, cool. With that, we do have 5 items, I believe, that's up for a public hearing today. And the procedures will be that the planning department will provide us with a report from the planning department in reference to a conditional use request. After that's completed, we'll then ask for anyone who wishes to speak before the committee to please stand and be sworn in by our clerk, Sarah Biviano. After that, we'll then open up the public hearing and ask for input from the community, petitioners, whomever. We'll open up the public hearing, and then we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll open up to questions from the council members that are on the committee. After that, we'll open up to committee or council, the rest of council for questions. Okay, then we'll move on to the next one. You're invited back this evening at 5 o'clock, in which we'll repeat that process basically. The only difference between then and now is the committee will make a recommendation to all of council, either in favor, against, or to table an item, take time, is what that means. All right, well, thank you all for showing up today. We really appreciate it. And with that, the first item that's up for a public hearing, Ms. Biviano, could you please read that in? Thank you.
Sure. The first item that's up for public hearing is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish a child daycare business center at 1584 Crichton Avenue and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Antonucci.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Mia O'Hara and Ashanti Smith are requesting permission to establish a child daycare business center at this location. The proposed daycare business center, known as Family Forever Child Care and Tutorial Agency, would occupy the 3,478 square foot vacant rectory. Care would be provided for a maximum of 30 children ranging in age from newborn to 12 years. The days of the operation will be from Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. There will be no overnight stays. If approved, the petitioners intend to hire 2 full-time assistants plus part-time positions as needed. The site contains a 4-car detached garage with ample paved parking areas. A pavilion is also located north of the rectory. Drop-off and pickup will either occur in the drive or near the parking area. The outdoor activity areas will either be immediately west or north of the rectory. Both petitioners have a wealth of experience in the education field. The church and rectory have been at this location since 1959, with the Steel Academy building built in the late 1980s. Since the rectory is 150 feet back from the street and behind the rear of the properties to the north, child care activities and parking should not be intrusive to surrounding properties. With most activities being conducted indoors, providing care for up to 30 children should not have a detrimental effect on nearby uses. Traffic congestion should not be an issue because the children are dropped off and picked up at varying times of the day. Furthermore, the drive located north of the church is marked for ingress only, while the drive between the church and Steel Academy is marked for egress. This Chapel Hill neighborhood property is well maintained, and the traffic engineer has no concerns with drop-off and pickup. Providing quality daycare service is beneficial to the entire city. The planning staff and planning commission recommend approval, subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. At this point, I'd like to ask Sarah Biviano to please swear in any individuals who wish to testify before the committee.
If you're here to provide testimony on this item, could you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point, we'll now open up the public hearing and ask if you would like to, if you could please provide for us your name and your address and any comments that you may have. You're welcome.
Hello, thank you for your time. My name is Mia O'Hara. I'm an Akron native. I was born and raised in Akron, went to Erie Allen Perkins and Bookville. Me and my daughter, who's being a little shy, we're opening up a child care and tutorial agency. I've been tutoring for over 30 years. We both worked for Akron Public Schools for over 10 years. This is just our dream and our goal, to provide affordable childcare and tutoring services. We're going to start out on the low end of the spectrum so we can offer affordable childcare, and we know that we can make this work. Are there any questions for me?
Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate everything that you do. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak before the committee? Anyone whatsoever? In terms of the first item, 1584 Crichton Avenue. Anyone wishing to speak to the committee? Is there? Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I didn't swear. Oh, okay. Could you please swear?
Sure. If you could raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do. I do. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
Hi. Joe Briding, owner of Christ the King Legacy Properties, LLC. Christ the King is a school and church that I went to as a kid. Having a school there, both in the old church and the school, and then having the synergy of a child care and tutorial in there it's kind of a dream come true tenant. So I couldn't ask for a better tenant, couldn't ask for two better people to be working with us on. So as far as the neighborhood, I grew up across the street, and I think it's really going to benefit the entire neighborhood.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor or against this item at 1584 Crichton? Anyone else? Anyone? Okay, we'll close the public hearing portion. Now open up to any committee members who may have questions or comments. Any committee members? Any council members? Any questions or comments? Again, we'll invite you back this evening at 5 o'clock, where you're welcome to come this evening for the second public hearing. After that, we'll make a recommendation. I did see Mr. Lombardo's hand just go up.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say that, I agree with you. It would be a good addition to the neighborhood, and being that there's a school there, I mean, the increase of traffic, I think would just fit right in. But, welcome to Ward 2.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. Item number 2, Ms. Viviano.
The second item up for public hearing is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct a contractor's office at 1684 South Arlington Street and declaring an emergency.
Okay, very good. Mr. Antonucci?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. AA Maintenance Services intends to construct a contractor's office on this property. The office and storage areas would be in Coventry Township, although it's within the JED. Access to the site and parking is in residentially zoned land in Akron. The site development plan shows a new 4,000 square foot single-story building and an 18-stall parking lot to be constructed west of Arlington Street. The petitioners have revised the plan since Planning Commission to add parking in the front of the building. The parking area would be asphalt paved and set back 20 feet from South Arlington Street. Landscaping would need to be installed between the street, and parking and fencing or dense landscaping would be needed on the south property line to screen the residents to the south. Petitioner states the company provides maintenance work for a local manufacturer approximately 10 minutes away. Typical office operations include technicians meeting at the office at 7 a.m. and then dispersing for the day, leaving just office staff on site. The company utilizes a van to transport workers, a vehicle for deliveries and pickups, and a dump truck for off-site use. All larger equipment will be stored within a fenced area in the rear of the building. The proposed use is permitted in Coventry Township, and the access drive onto South Arlington Street and parking should not pose any issues within Akron. The roadway is 4 lanes in width at this location and can easily handle any traffic generated by the proposed use. Both planning staff and planning commission recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. Ms. Viviano, could you please swear in any individuals that wish to testify before the committee today?
If you're here to provide testimony for this public hearing, could you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do. I do. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we'll open up the public hearing and invite you to the microphone. Again, if you could please provide for us your name and address, we'd appreciate that, and we're welcoming you to the Planning Committee.
Hi, my name is Orlando Abels. I'm the owner and operator of AA Maintenance. We've been in business for the last 12 years. We're trying to take and help the community by helping people that are kind of have been having a hard time on finding work. So that's what we do. We are a second chance company. I've been working at Meggitt for the last 30 years. I opened up this business 12 years ago. We're trying to expand so we can employ even more people for the city of Akron. That's about it.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you. What's your address, sir?
Excuse me?
What's your address?
The address to the office?
Or your home address, either one.
My home address, 772 Reed Avenue,
Okay.
which is right in that area.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for coming this afternoon.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Henning. I live at 3675 Ronsdale Road in Sugar Heights, Ohio. I am the architect for the project. Just to explain the property a little bit, if you're familiar with that intersection, we have two steep banks that we have to contend with along the freeway and also on the south property line. So in order to kind of condense our development, we wanted to kind of work within the confines of the top of the embankment so that we weren't going to be encroaching upon any other type of retaining wall systems or any other type of water mitigation going down on the south property. So we try to consolidate all of our parking up front, trying to minimize, again, any other type of trees and things of that nature that we would have to remove along that south side to rework the grading along there. So when you mentioned about buffering the area on the south side, there's a tremendous amount of trees there right now, and with this development the way we have it, we can leave all of those trees and bushes in place and not touch that embankment, which is going to be better for water mitigation as well. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good afternoon. My name is Dania Martin. My office is at 2383 South Main Street, and I'm just on the Coventry line. I provide operations consulting for AA Maintenance, and we're really trying to expand because he is providing employment opportunities for disadvantaged and marginalized individuals. So those that are not only having a hard time finding work, but those that want to supply ample income for their families. And so he gives them that opportunity to do so with their training and things of that nature. And so this particular site location, like he said, is less than 10 minutes away from Meggitt Aircraft Systems, what makes it easier for him to be able to transport all the staff. And the goal is that the expansion of this location will give him opportunity to be able to provide more employment for other individuals and to help. He works with the Oriana House, now my mind is escaping me, not Habitat for Humanity, the homeless shelter that's right there on East Market Street.
Yes.
Yes.
Haven of Rest.
Okay. Yes, and so I've been working with him to partner along with these companies to help with the transportation for them to be able to get to work. So that's where, you know, where we're trying to go with the van system and things of that nature. So we really hope you guys will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down. Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to testify before the committee? Anyone else? Very good. We'll close the public hearing portion. Open up to any committee members who may have questions or comments. Not seeing any. We'll open it to council. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Again, you're invited back this evening at 5 o'clock if you'd like to come down and/or Zoom. If you contact Sarah Viviano or someone in her office, you could Zoom in as well. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Item number, I believe we're on 3.
Item number 3 is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish a child daycare business center at 121 Rhodes Avenue and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Antonucci?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Casey Myers and Rochelle Hausler are requesting permission to establish a child daycare business center at this location. While the building is a legal, non-conforming retail use, the rear of the property is zoned for residential purposes. With such expansion of a retail use in a residential district requires conditional use approval. The proposed daycare business center, known as Watershed Community School, would occupy the ground floor retail unit of the 2-story, 6,474 square foot brick building. An outdoor play area would be sited behind the building. The petitioners have stated that the play area will be fenced and typically utilized for 2 hours each weekday morning by up to 10 children and 2 teachers. The yard will be improved with native plants and natural landscaping materials. The use of the building as a child daycare business center is currently permitted. The expansion of the outdoor play area into the residential area, if properly screened, should not be intrusive to abutting properties. Providing quality daycare service is beneficial to the city, and planning staff and planning commission recommend approval, subject to conditions.
Thank you for your report, Mr. Antonucci. At this time, I'd like to ask Sarah Biviano to please swear in any individuals who wish to testify before the committee.
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, "I do." Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. If you could please provide for us your name and address.
Sure.
Welcome.
Hello, thanks for having us. My name is Rochelle Hostler. I live at 215 Metz Avenue. I'm in Akron. I am a Ward 1 resident, and I have been for over 15 years. This property is also in Ward 1. My partner and I are colleagues who were early childhood faculty professors at Kent State University. We've been working in early childhood in the field for over 20 years. We have a lot of experience with children under 5, a lot of experience consulting and working with families and children in a variety of settings. We're excited about this property because it is situated in a neighborhood and we are a community-oriented program. We want to re-emphasize that it's a very small program, as Mike said, with around 10 children. Casey and I are the owners, directors, and teachers. Yeah, and we really pride ourselves on being good neighbors. So we know that the expansion of the play yard is into residential space, and we are cognizant of our neighbors there and plan to work in our very best capacity to not create chaos or disturb them any more than typically would be the case. Would you like to add more?
I don't really have that much to add. My name is Casey Myers. My address is 900 Maryland Drive in Kent, Ohio. I will say that Rochelle and I have been working on this project since 2020 and have worked really hard to find a space that would allow us to have something small, sustainable, and situated within a neighborhood, so that a major part of our curriculum with young children is, what does it mean to live in Akron? What does it mean to live in Highland Square? What are the spaces and places and people that are important in our daily lives? And so the property at 121 Rhodes Avenue will really provide us with that opportunity because of where it's situated. We've already made contact with a lot of the neighbors to reassure them that this is a tiny program. We're not going to be installing large playground equipment that they can see over their fences. It's just going to look like a nicely landscaped backyard for the children to enjoy. And so we're very confident that this program can create a kind of upward spiral in a neighborhood that's positive and not be a hindrance in any way to the neighbors or businesses that are already there.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify before the committee today? Anyone else? No one online? Okay, very good. We'll close the public hearing portion. Is there anyone on the committee with questions or comments? Or on council? Okay, again, you're invited back this evening, and so thank you very much for coming down today. Thank you. Mr. Antonucci, Sarah, please read item number 4. Thank you.
Item number 4 is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish a commercial use at 441 White Pond Drive and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Antonucci?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Russell J. McPherson is requesting permission to construct an addition to the dwelling that will house their light assembly business. The 34 by 36 foot or 1,200 square foot single-story addition will be on the east side of the house. The building materials of the addition will match the existing house with several windows on all exterior elevations. The addition will not encroach into the front, side, or rear setbacks of the property and meet development requirements. Access to the home will be from the existing front and side entrances, and the existing detached garage with access from Alton Drive will remain. The addition will contain 2 stock rooms, a cutting room, fabricating room, and an assembly and shipping area. The petitioners wish to move their small assembly business from Copley to this location. Utopia Products has been in operation for over 50 years, and they design, fabricate, and sell backrests for motorcycles. All orders are received online or over the telephone. Outgoing packages are dropped off at the U.S. Post Office, and a UPS or FedEx van may come to the shop once or twice a week. The business may accommodate another 2 full-time employees on site. While the planning staff recognizes the light assembly use in a residential property in the area would be unique, several homes in the immediate area have received conditional use approval for office use over the years. The property is large enough that the addition will not significantly increase the density of the property. The addition will continue to maintain the appearance of a single-family house. All business activity will be indoors, so there should be no negative impact to neighboring properties regarding noise, odors, or appearance. And both Planning Staff and Planning Commission recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. Ms. Biviano, could you please swear in any individuals that wish to testify before the committee?
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, "I do." Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Now we'll open up the public hearing. If you could please provide for us your name and address. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Andy McPherson. My address is 330 Pheasant Run in Wadsworth, Ohio. Just want to thank you for taking the time to consider this. I guess the one thing I just kind of want to share with you is my brother Russ is he's a little cognitively and socially challenged, and he's been living in that house since my mother passed away in October. My brother Danny and I own the business Utopia Products, and we've been looking for a place to operate our business that we weren't renting a shop. The thought of mixing the two together with us being able to add our shop there and also to see our brother on a daily basis, because he really struggles to live on his own, and we don't see him moving anywhere after being in that home for 30 years. So that's what we're trying to work on to make that happen. If you have any questions, I guess that comes later. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for coming down. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak before the committee? Referencing White Pond 441. Anyone else? Okay, very good. Hearing none, we'll invite you back this evening, of course, at 5 o'clock. Thank you. With that, let's go ahead. Questions? Anyone? Comments? Anyone? No one? Okay, very good. We're ready for item number 5, Daniels Avenue.
Item number 5 is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct a deck and solid fence at 1869 Daniels Avenue and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Antonucci.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. David and Diana Farrell are requesting to vary the required 25-foot rear yard area by enclosing a pool with an attached deck that will extend to within 4 feet of the rear property line. Because the 21-foot rear yard variance consumes more than 40% of the required rear yard area, the request exceeds the Board of Zoning Appeals jurisdiction. Additionally, a 6 feet in height solid fence will be constructed within 4 feet of the Daniels Avenue right-of-way. Petitioner's property rises upward from west to east with their rear yard containing retaining walls along the east and south sides. This neighborhood is characterized by hilly terrain, and the abutting dwelling to the east sits considerably higher than the petitioner's. Since the neighboring driveway is 40 feet to the east and is at a higher elevation, the placement of a solid fence 4 feet from the sidewalk should not pose any safety issues for pedestrians or vehicular traffic. Furthermore, the traffic engineer is not opposed to the proposed location of the fence. The proposed decking around the pool will provide usable open space for the petitioners, and the solid fence will provide privacy. The topography of the lot creates a hardship, and the proposed deck, fence, and stairwell will improve the well-maintained home and add value without imposing on abutting properties. And planning staff and planning commission recommend approval subject to the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. At this point, I'll ask Sarah Biviano to please swear in anyone who wishes to testify before the committee.
We also have one individual that joined online, so if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and swear them both in at the same time.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, "I do."
I do.
Thank you.
Very good. With that, we will now open up the public hearing portion, and you're welcome to come to the microphone, please, and provide for us your name and address. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is David Farrell. I reside at 1869 Daniels Avenue in Akron. So thank you for taking the time today to add this to your agenda and for this evening. My request is for your approval, of course. I don't have a backyard. I have a nice side yard, but I happen to be on a corner lot. And our current ordinances restrict to what we can do, even though it's not the corner lot, it's the side yard of the corner lot. You know, we've gone through the process. We're trying to do the right thing. My builder's on standby. He's waiting to go. We just want to enjoy our side yard, our deck, you know, for our family, our grandchildren. So I just ask for your movement forward. I'm not a daycare. I'm not a body shop. I'm not anything. I just want to enjoy my pool. So thank you.
Understand.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming down, sir. Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to testify? I do know we have someone who is sworn in online. If you please provide for us your name and address. Thank you.
Yeah, we're the contractor for 1869 Daniels Avenue. My name is Chuck Conway. And like Mr. Daniels said, the hardship of the property, the way the elevations are and stuff, and for his family use, they would like to, have this variance go through so that they can have use for their family in their backyard and stuff. So, but yeah, we are the contractor that's going to do the project for them, and we appreciate your considerations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anyone else with any comments or questions, comments? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing portion. Invite you both back this evening if you'd like to at 5 o'clock. And with that, we'll open it up to any committee members who may have questions. Any council members with questions? Anyone whatsoever? Okay, we're not hearing or seeing anyone. Again, thank you all for coming this afternoon, and look forward to possibly seeing us at 5 o'clock this evening, where we'll make a recommendation. With that, we'll move on to the list of regular legislation. Item number 6, this is referencing the Legal Defender's Office of Summit County to be located in the Municipal Court building, also known as the Alvaro Kasich Building. This came in last week. It's about $18.80 a square foot with bumps annually, and for 1,200 or so, 1,246 square feet. Wanted everybody to have a chance to look this over. Any questions or comments from anyone? Is a favorable report? Is there a recommendation for favorable with suspension of the rules? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Very good. Against? Hearing none, we'll report that out this evening. The 7th item that's on our regular list of legislation, this is referencing our annual action plan, for the including the CDBG, home, ESG, some of which we have experienced some reductions, unfortunately, from our funders from the federal government, unfortunately. Just wondered if there's anyone with any questions or comments at this time. Wanted everyone to have a chance to look this all over. I do have a quick question in terms of, has this deviated at all in terms of our budget? I didn't get a chance to look it over, our capital budget that we passed earlier this year. Has this deviated from that original?
The only decrease was, I believe, in the capital budget for the neighborhood revitalization sustainability, which is the housing rehab program, that was decreased from $1 million to $875,000. And that was done primarily as a reflection of the decrease from the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Okay. Very good. Also, so the demolition piece, the $400,000. I know we were at a clip of about $500,000 for a while, and I know this. What was it last year? I don't recall.
400.
400 last year?
It's been 400 for a couple years. I believe in 2022 was about $200,000. At that time, we were thinking ARPA would absorb some of the housing demolition program, but we decided to go in a different direction with ARPA funds.
Okay.
So it went down to 200 and then increased back up to $400,000 for the past couple of years.
Okay, good, because I know there for a while after the recession, we were about $500,000 plus on top of that. And then I see the development of the affordable housing, 1,080. I'm guessing where half of that's going. It might be on our agenda today.
That's
$500,000, right?
That is a portion of that is going to Habitat, which we'll talk a little bit about today.
Yes.
And then we also have some other commitments that we're looking at that will be brought to council in the forthcoming year as those we go to and develop those contracts.
Okay,
Owner
good,
contract
good. But
agreements.
the TOBR, so half of that, the $500,000, that's coming out of here for the TOBR project?
So TOBR will be up half this year and half next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Very good. And then I'd like to, the grade streets. Can you talk a little bit about that in terms of the facade? I know we've been behind on that for a spell, and just curious where we're at on that in terms of new projects, et cetera. I know we're collecting information at this juncture, but where are we at on this one?
So the $405,000 represents contract commitments to date. As of, we are reevaluating the Great Streets program and see what direction we want to go in. But this $405,000 represents commitments that we've already made.
Okay. So that's committed funds. How about the 100,000?
The 100,000 for infrastructure improvements, public improvements. So we're looking at that. That could include cameras for the Great Streets.
Okay.
It could include beautification, those type of items.
Okay, good. So they're not really committed at this juncture. Business incentives, I see $50,000 there for that. Is that committed, or is that?
As of today, it is not committed.
It's not committed.
Correct.
So therefore, it could possibly go toward something. Okay, good to know. I think we've already, the community development organizations, the $500,000. Can you comment about that?
So we issued a request for proposals. Those were due July 8th.
Okay.
So we are reviewing those, and we hope to have those presented to council your second session in September.
Okay.
And the same would apply for the Emergency Solutions Grant Program.
Okay, gotcha. Very good. This is good. And then the fair housing, that $80,000.
That was included a couple weeks ago. We presented the Community Services Program.
That's what I thought.
So fair housing was included as part of that
Is
legislation.
that a bump up from last year to this year?
That is the same.
It's the same as it was? Okay. Good. Questions or comments from anyone else? Is there a recommendation for, I believe we're going to need suspension of the rules on this one, Sarah? No?
You're on your third reading, so you could pass with
Okay,
a
good.
favorable
Good.
report.
Is there a recommendation for approval? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 8, this is referencing the vape shops, I do believe, that we had discussed last week, I think, or the week before last. Is there any questions or comments referencing that? From anyone whatsoever? I want to give everyone an opportunity to look this over. The only thing I had, and I think we covered it, we talked about it, but you know, the 1,000 feet or whatever, referencing the, and I know we could probably amend this later if we want to, but from a school, it just seemed like an appropriate thing to think about. I don't know, but, and you had a comment about it, I believe, last week.
Yeah, we didn't include that in this text change on that. We were basically just looking at retail areas and making sure that they weren't scattered in retail districts. So we really didn't put in that spacing from other uses, just each other, essentially.
Gotcha, yeah.
2,500 feet, so.
And I don't know if anyone has any feelings or comments about that, but in my personal opinion, it just kind of makes sense to maybe do that. in reference to schools, trying to discourage the young ones, obviously, but that's a discussion for another day, and Mike, you and I can talk about that.
Yeah,
a
something
little
we
bit
could look
later.
into.
Yeah.
We may need to map that out and see that that's not a big prohibition or something.
Yeah,
like that. So
yeah.
There's some considerations on that. but-
Let's talk further, and if anyone's interested in that as well, more than happy to discuss offline. Is any other questions or comments? If not, is there a recommendation for approval? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Very good, the ayes have it. Okay, item number 9. Now, this one is referencing the marijuana piece. And can someone comment about this, whomever? This is pretty much, well, I'll let the experts explain it. So we're, make sure that you're an expert. You guys are experts, come on.
Not sure I want to be labeled the expert on the marijuana usage. The state initiative, as we know, last November made recreational or adult use, as the ballot language put it, marijuana consumption, growth, sales legal. And so we are updating our zoning code to account for that, the potential use as a land use category. As it is, we get requests and are getting requests from businesses that wish to engage in that type of sales and production. And we have no way to say yes or no.
Right.
As it stands. And so with this language, we would update the previously passed legislation that allowed council to consider conditional use requests for medical use, and just sort of strike medical and make it any
Yes.
related. And so then it would go through the planning commission process, council approval.
Yes.
So this just allows us to say yes or no.
Exactly right. Anything? Question, will this, so for those that we did approve for the medical piece, are they grandfathered in, or are they gonna have to come back in for the recreational?
Yeah, they will need to come back in.
Okay, good.
That's how it's written, is that to go to the dual use or to adult use with dispensaries, cultivation, processing, any of those facilities, that they would need to come back through for a conditional
And they'll
use
come back
to
through.
go to that, yes, to that.
The
adult.
commission, then council, correct?
Yep.
Okay, just double check and making sure. Questions or comments from anyone else? Anybody? Oh, yes, Linda Mobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are we allowed to impose a limit on how many dispensaries or growth-producing facilities we could have in the city?
The state's pretty much already, written that into their licensing requirements, and that any dispensary needs to be a mile from another dispensary. So that in and of itself is going to limit the number that we'll have.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. Any further questions, Ms. Mobian?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with other questions? Further questions? Everybody good? Okay, very good. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion that we move for approval.
Motion to approve.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, good, thank you. Okay, item number 10. This is the contract, I believe, with Wintergreen Ledges Apartments, which we received a copy thereof, I believe. And so this is also the $500,000 home funds that we had spoken about as well in support of this 120 affordable housing units to low-income individuals in Akron. Questions or comments from anyone? No questions or comments? Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okey-doke, thank you. And I believe, short of any questions or concerns from anyone, we're going to recommend time on the balance, or is there anything else? I think we cleaned everything on the regular agenda. We can now move into the new list of legislation. this is where you get to hear more from Sarah Viviano than me, which is a blessing for everyone. The second, we'll begin with item number 2, Ms. Viviano.
Item number 2 is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to vary the parking requirement at 360 to 454 East Waterloo Road and declaring an emergency.
For an advertise for public hearing.
Item number 3 is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct a solid wooden fence beyond the building line at 2016 Kramer Avenue and declaring an emergency.
For an advertise for public hearing.
Item number 4 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a grant agreement with Akron Polymer Products, Inc. and/or SA Industries, Inc. relating to its relocation and investment into Akron's workforce and declaring an emergency.
Very good, thank you. Susie Graham, more.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Akron Polymer Products and SA Industries produce a wide variety of thermoplastic tube products for under the hood and interior applications in automotive, truck, and off-highway industries. They're a full-service resource center, and in 2019, city representatives and representatives from Akron Polymer Products entered into negotiations and reached a tentative agreement regarding an award of relocation incentive worth up to $250,000 to provide funding necessary for that relocation to 1471 Exeter Road in Akron. In good faith reliance on that incentive, Akron Polymer Products invested in a lease of facilities and equipment and moved their operations here to Akron. They've continued to grow in excess of the benchmarks that were created in that original agreement, growing from 186 employees in 2019 to 257 employees currently, and growing their Akron payroll in excess of $10 million currently annually. They currently lease 226,200 square feet in their Exeter Road location. But despite the intentions of the parties, no portion of the relocation incentive was ever paid to the business, and the current administration was recently made aware of these circumstances. So given the circumstances and the importance of Akron Polymer Products as one of the more than 500 polymer businesses in the Akron Polymer cluster, we believe it is equitable to enter into an updated LOU and provide that business with a grant not only to make it whole for its relocation and investment into Akron, but also to incentivize them to continue those operations and stay here in place, which those operations generate substantial payroll within the city of Akron. And so we are committing to make an annual payment to the business in the amount of $50,000 for a total of 5 years, so long as the business maintains at least 200 full-time employees, all of which are physically located within the jurisdictional boundaries of the city, and a minimum gross annual payroll of $8 million per year.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions or comments? Very good. What's the timing on this?
We would appreciate consent agenda if appropriate.
Very good. Is there a recommendation for consent? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you very much. Thank you. Glad we're taking care of that one. Item number 5.
Item number 5 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a development agreement with Amazon Services, LLC, providing for the sale and redevelopment of property located in Springfield Township at 2280 Picton Parkway, finding such property is not needed for any public use and declaring an emergency.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Bowman.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and members of the committee and council. We are proposing to sell a bit over 20 acres, I think closer to like 23 acres of property owned out in the Springfield JED to Amazon. They were going to construct, they referred to as a last mile facility. It's just in case like getting your packages on the same day isn't quick enough. They can get to you even quicker now, I think. But it's a great project. There are going to be about 200 jobs. It's a 65,000 square foot facility, and they're investing about $31 million into this facility. It was approved by the Springfield Township trustees about a week and a half ago, and we'll get final zoning approval by Summit County. Ideally, I mean, it's before Summit County for zoning approval this Thursday. And this would authorize the sale of the property. Went to Planning Commission the previous meeting.
Good. Very good. Thank you. This is located, of course, within the JED.
It's in the Springfield JED, so the tax sharing applies as is in the Springfield JED.
Yeah, is there an estimate on how many jobs?
It's about 200 jobs. And the purchase or the sale is at our normal 25,000 per.
Yeah, 25. I saw that in the legislation. Thank you for bringing that up as well. I personally believe here this is an opportunity. This JED has been sitting for some time, but now we can put somebody there, and this is a company. This is one of the. This is the way of the world.
And this is actually, it was a good fit because that Hillendale development that you approved.
Yeah.
They both wanted the similar land, and David and our team was able to kind of split up, well, you guys take this, you take this,
Sure.
and we got two great developments going
That's
forward on this
outstanding.
property.
It really is,
Yep.
and we appreciate that, and getting those products. Isn't it Amazon Day this week or last
Yeah,
week?
I think that was last week. I think every day is Prime Day. At least at my
You may
house.
have a point there. You may have, at least in your house.
Yes.
No, and I think to let them know, and the development world and everyone else, that this is, I would recommend passage this evening. I think it's important that we send that signal, that sign, if you will, to the community, the development community, that we're here and we're ready to work with you, your team, both of you and your team. Appreciate all you do for this particular effort as well as others. And again, sending that sign to the development community, I think, is important, and to those that create the jobs. So with that, any questions or comments from anyone? If not, I'd like to recommend approval with suspension of the rules. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Thank you. The ayes have it. Item number 6, Ms. Viviano.
Item number 6 is an ordinance levying special assessments and determining to proceed with public improvements and public services for the Downtown Akron Special Improvement District in accordance with Ordinance Number 100/2024, which approved the Downtown Akron Special Improvement District Plan for services to be provided by the Downtown Akron Special Improvement District, Inc. for 2025 to 2029, all when and where necessary, all together with the necessary appurtenances thereto, and declaring an emergency.
Oh.
Yep, I am going to.
A change up here.
This is the third piece of legislation that we've brought to you with regard to the downtown assessments, as we colloquially refer to them. This would be, previously council approved the plan for the downtown services that DAP would administer with these funds, and then we did the first assessment piece a couple months ago, and this is the final piece that would levy those assessments and allow for, we proposed $1 million budget. This will collect that $1 million a year that will go to DAP in order to provide the services they provide for the next 5 years.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Was this an increase or the same?
The total amount of the assessment increased, I think it was $975 to $1 million, or 9 something to $1 million.
It went from $850,000 to $1 million, but also included expansion of the district to the
Right.
south. So new parcels, change in overall assessment.
So as with our assessments, what we do is we have hearings.
Yeah, we had after the passage of the resolution, then the property owners were notified and had a period of time to object, and there were no objections filed. And the majority of the land, the frontage, was a petition in the first place. So when you petition, then you are waiving your right to an objection when you sign the petition, but no one that didn't sign objected.
Very good. Good to know. Very good. Questions or comments from anyone? Consent agenda okay?
Be great.
Yes, thank you.
Very good. Is there a recommendation for consent?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? The ayes have it. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Item number 7 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of the Department of Planning and Urban Development to enter into a contract with Habitat for Humanity of Summit County for the construction of the Silver Maple Ridge development of 16 affordable single-family homes for low-income families in Akron, and declaring an emergency.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mulhauser.
Good afternoon. Habitat for Humanity will build 16 affordable single-family homes on land donated to Habitat from the city in 2023. The site is zoned for the intended use. The 3.2-acre parcel is located in North Hill and is bounded by Evans Avenue on the north, Dan Street to the west, Damon Street to the east, and Hollabaugh Avenue to the south. The city will support Habitat with a commitment of $50,000 per home for a total of $800,000 in home funds. Total investment for the development is approximately $3.2 million. As a stipulation of the home funds, the homes will be sold to families earning at or less than 80% of the area median income. And the estimated price is approximately $175,000 to $200,000. The homes will be sold for their appraised value. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments from anyone? Anyone? Is there a time frame on this?
Consent agenda is fine.
Is there a recommendation for consent? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Very good. You guys have it. Thank you. Number 8.
Item number 8 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee, without the formality of publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts with North Hill Community Development Corporation for the renovation of 771 North Main Street and declaring an emergency.
Yes, Ms. Tomic?
Good afternoon, committee chair, committee members. The city of Akron received approximately $145 million of American Rescue funds in 2021 to assist in aiding public health and economic development recovery. The planning department is recommending a partnership with North Akron CDC to renovate 771 North Main Street. This project is a mixed-use commercial rehabilitation consisting of the creation of 9 affordable housing rental units and mixed-use office space, community space for the community and the agency itself. With that, we respectfully request this item be placed on the consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments from anyone? Yes, Ms. Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just curious. So I know there was a competitive CDC process that was ARPA funded.
Correct.
And this appears to be much larger than that and outside of that. Was this a different competitive process, or how did this come about?
So we issued 2 competitive RFPs. One was for CDCs, and that was, the ceiling for that was $250,000. There was a second RFP that was released 2021 for acquisition rehabilitation. And we made 3 awards, and this is the 3rd award for that RFP.
Got it. Just curious, it's been a few years. Like, what was happening during that time period in between?
You want to go ahead?
So there was some question about how we could structure the contract within the parameters of the ARPA, and also knowing that construction costs have ballooned since, what did you say, 21? And so the ability to, initially the award was, well, you will complete the renovation of this. So you can't do that with $600,000. So then we had to work, okay, how can we fill that gap? What can we do to make this contract achievable within the confines of ARPA? And then, what other funds can we bring to the table in order to help North Hill? So we've been having conversations, and I was actually having conversations in my previous role last year as a loan officer, trying to figure out help with the low-cost financing to close that gap. But what we've done here is structured this contract so that we could get it out the door, and it facilitate investment in the building that won't necessarily result in occupiable units, but that will set the stage then for the next phase of construction.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Linda Mobian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 questions. I'm trying to understand this arrangement, if someone could explain it to me. And the second piece, since we're talking about repairing through the ARPA dollars, When are we going to get the list of those individuals that have been approved for these various projects? Because I know we have different vendors doing different homes, repairing different homes. I know that Summit County Council has pretty much released their list of who they have approved. It would be great to have that information because people are still calling. So help me understand what this is. Now, who owns this project that you're talking about?
North Hill Development Corporation is the owner of the building. They purchased it acquired it through the land.
And then once it's completed, how many units are we talking about and who would be eligible for those?
The final arrangement of units, I believe, is going to be 10 apartments. And we're still trying to figure out if we're going to be able to use some home funds in there, making them affordable, with the requirements of that program. Whether there's debt through the Western Reserve Community Fund's Housing Trust Fund that would also have affordability requirements. That piece is still being worked out.
Can I add a comment? This program is different from the housing repair program. So I believe you're referring to that long list for housing repair. This is a different funding pot within the ARPA funds. So this is a partnership with the CDC to create more affordable housing in the North Hill area.
Yeah, I understand that, and thank you very much for that distinction. So, but the home repair program, can we find out more about the home repair 2.0 and who's been approved?
We can get that information.
We'll get that information.
Thank you. Anything further?
Thank you. No, thank you.
Thank you. What's the timeline on this?
Consent agenda would be sufficient.
Okay. Yes, I see President Somerville's hand.
I just wanted to acknowledge that we do have the Executive Director, Justin Chenault, online. I don't know if he wanted to add anything.
Well, sure.
Thank you, Council President, for the opportunity. I do believe that Kyle and Helen have done a good job giving the basis for this project. I think this is something that's needed for creating more anchoring institution opportunities in Temple Square as a commercial corridor that needs to create more thriving opportunities for the diversity of our neighborhood. So I think this would be it'd be good for the CDC as well for the neighborhood. So thank you.
Anybody else? Lombardo.
Thank you. Just wanted to chime in to acknowledge Justin and, of course, Helen and Kyle here for their hard work and definitely support this project in the ward. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Tina Boyd?
Just quickly, I want to echo that. I think these types of projects are very hard to fund, and these are small organizations. They're working hard to get their feet under them, and I just want to acknowledge the planning staff for working hard with them, because that's part of the missing piece of the puzzle, I think, is someone to help those organizations find out where the possibilities are, because it shouldn't all be the city's responsibility, but they can't do it alone. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
I would just request that we see the contract. You said there's a contract. We're asking to approve that. I think that would be appropriate. So, and if there's a plan, at least a site plan or something with a little bit of information, I think that's appropriate as well. I don't have any heartburn. I don't think anybody does about consent agenda. So if there's a recommendation for consent, so moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Very good. Thank you. Item number 9.
Item number 9 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to file applications and to enter into agreements for funding of certain capital improvements under the Ohio Public Works Commission's Local Transportation Improvement Program and the State Capital Improvements Program, committing city funds for the local share of these improvements and declaring an emergency.
Very good. Mr. Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The City of Akron has utilized the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement Program, known as SCIP, and the Local Transportation Improvement Program, known as LTIP, since 1989. This is the 39th funding round. To date, Akron's received over $155 million in SCIP funds and $56 million in LTIP funds. We are proposing to submit 5 applications totaling $11.1 million in SCIP and LTIP monies. 3 projects are transportation and 2 are in water and sewer categories. The projects are the Concrete Pavement Rehabilitation Program 2025, North Main Street Complete Street, South Main Street Improvements Phase 3, Sanitary Sewer Reconstruction 2025, and the sodium hypochlorite feed system replacement at the Akron Water Plant. We anticipate funding announcements by March of 2025. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, especially about the sodium hypochlorite feed system replacement. Are you ready for that question?
No, I was hoping you wouldn't do it.
Okay, Mr. Ashley, we won't go there. Questions or comments from anyone? What's the timeline on this one?
Applications are in mid-August, and our legislation needs to be passed, so it'd have to go before council goes on recess.
Okay. So suspension of the rules?
That'd be fine.
Very good. Questions or comments? If none, is there a motion? I'll make the motion for suspension of the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. Item number 10, Ms. Viviano.
Item number 10 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for, and if awarded, accept and expend grant funds associated with lead hazard reduction from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and declaring an emergency.
Yes, sir.
I'm Doug Taylor. I'm the administrator of the Housing Rehabilitation Office. We would like to apply for a $7.75 million grant from HUD to do lead hazard control, as we've done in the past. This will be the 5th one we've had, and we'd like to apply for it.
Very good. Questions or comments from anyone? We wish you nothing but luck.
Thanks.
What's the time frame on this?
The application is due the 19th of August, and it's a 4-year program. We'd like to see if we can start it the 1st of 2025, so we go from the 1st of 25 to the 1st of 2029.
Gotcha. Very good. How many houses do you think?
We're going to try to do between 200 and 250.
Gotcha. Okay, very good. Where are we in terms of, I believe it was in the late 70s or something, whenever lead was...
Well, lead was, they quit manufacturing lead in paint in 1978. So that's the guideline when houses built before 78 are the ones that qualify.
Gotcha.
We started a program in 1996 with the Akron Health Department. When the health department left, merged with the county, we took over in 2009, started running the lead programs on our own through our office.
Gotcha. Good, good, good. So we basically run it ourselves?
Yeah. We manage the grant. We will be putting out RFPs for some partner agencies, come in and give a little bit of hand. Part of the grants have always been about opening up to nonprofits, 501Cs, those type of things, to bring them in so they're aware of how to deal with lead paint. It's usually a demonstration type of a thing to help bring them in so they can do some things. Okay. We're looking possibly 2 partners.
Good, good. That's great to hear. Do we have like a percentage of houses in the city of Akron that has been done, and then how many is yet to do still? Has that been estimated ever?
We usually do about anywhere from 250 to 300 per year. And we've had 5 grants, so that'd come up to around 1,500, I would guess, if I had to guess what we've done. That's just a drop in the bucket.
I was going to say, yeah, it sounds like, especially the majority of our city's been developed before 78, so we have a long stretch of highway ahead of us. But appreciate everything you guys do.
Thank you.
And we appreciate the support of those feds on this. Questions, comments, anyone? Consent okay?
I believe so. It's due on the 19th of August, so I think we'll have plenty of time.
That should be enough time?
Okay.
Okay, very good. Recommendation for consent? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Very good. The ayes have it. And that will conclude planning for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public service should be starting right now.
Yep, we'll get started in just a moment here. Thank you. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Our next committee of the day is the Public Service Committee. Those committee members are Kamer, McKittrick, DeShazier, Somerville, and Lombardo. We have all committee members present except for Councilman DeShazier. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I'd like to call the public service meeting to order, please. Last time we held a meeting was on July 8th, and we do need to approve those minutes, please. Can I get approval?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor of the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We have several pieces in front of us today, and I'm going to ask Sarah, since she's in council chambers and I'm online, if she could read in number 11. I'd appreciate it.
Of course. Number 11 is an ordinance levying special assessments for the improvement of certain streets between certain termini, 2022 Phase 1 Residential Resurfacing Program by resurfacing such streets with asphaltic concrete 402-404 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. And I do see we have our service director, Chris Luttle, with us. Chris, if you don't mind, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of committee. Yes, sir. The first three, 11, 12, and 13, are all from the 22 resurfacing program that was a carryover, excuse me, and finished in 23 last year. So it has been a year. The resurfacing has been complete. The warranty is now over, and the true cost of the assessment will be mailed to the property owner. So this first one that we are talking about is the residential portion of the 22 resurfacing program. Sir, with the timing with Summit County tax and the residents or the owners that would like to place this on their income tax, I would respectfully ask to suspend the rules on these pieces, please.
Sure, no problem. Thank you for presenting. I appreciate that. let's see, committee members, any questions or comments for Mr. Luddle? And if not, any other council members that are in chambers or online? All right, okay. Chris is considering, he would like suspension of the rules on this and a few other pieces that follow. So, committee?
I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules with a favorable report.
Second.
All in favor of suspension of the rules? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to number 12. Sarah, if you could, please.
Number 12 is an ordinance levying special assessments for the improvement of certain streets between certain termini, 2022 Phase 1 Arterial Collector Program by resurfacing such streets with asphaltic concrete 402-404 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Same explanation, carryover from 22 that was finished in 23. It has now been a year since it's been completed. The warranty's over, and the assessment notices with the invoice will be mailed to the property owner.
All right, thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. Any questions or comments? If not, committee, Chris would like suspension of rules on this one, please.
I'll make that motion again to suspend the rules with a favorable report.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for suspension of rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to number 13, Sarah.
Number 13 is an ordinance levying special assessments for the improvement of certain streets between certain termini, 2022 Phase 1 Unimproved Street Resurfacing Program by treating the surface thereof with substances designed to preserve the surface and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the 22 carryover that was finished in 23 of the unimproved streets and the resurfacing program, and to send the invoices to the property owners, please.
All right, thank you. First, I'll ask, just in case, any questions or comments? If not, we get a suspension of rules on this, committee?
Again, I'll make a motion to suspend the rules with a favorable report.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for suspension of the rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Sarah, if you don't mind, moving on to number 14, please.
Number 14 is an ordinance levying special assessments for the improvement of certain streets between certain termini, 2023 Phase 1 Residential Resurfacing Program by resurfacing such streets with asphaltic concrete 402-404 and declaring an emergency.
Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the 23 Phase 1 residential. There again, it has been a year since the program has been completed, and this will allow us to send invoices to the property owners.
All right, thank you, Chris. Just to ask this in advance, is 14, 15, and 16 all kind of the same?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Committee members, any questions or other council members? All right, and I believe you would like suspension of the rules, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Committee?
Motion to suspend the rules with a favorable report.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for suspension of the rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to number 15, Sarah, please.
Number 15 is an ordinance levying special assessments for the improvement of certain streets between certain termini, 2023 Phase 1 Arterial Collector Program by resurfacing such streets with asphaltic concrete 402-404 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the Phase 1 of the 23 resurfacing program, Arterial Collector. It allow us to send the invoices to the property owners.
All right, thank you, Chris. Questions or comments? All right, moving on. Committee?
Make that motion to suspend the rules with a favorable report.
Second. All in favor? I have a motion and a second for suspension of rules. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Number 16, Sarah, please.
Number 16 is an ordinance levying special assessments for the improvement of certain streets between certain termini, 2023 Phase 1 Unimproved Street Resurfacing Program by treating the surface thereof with substances designed to preserve the surface and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the 23 Phase 1 unimproved portion of our resurfacing program, and the same explanation will, now that the warranty is over, allow us to send invoices to the property owners.
All right, thank you, Chris. Committee members or any council members? All right, committee, Chris would like suspension of the rules.
Yes,
Motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
and I'll second that.
Thank you. I have a motion, a second for suspension of the rules. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to number 17, Sarah, please.
Number 17 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into contracts without the formality of advertising for bids to purchase technology that will modernize and streamline snow and ice operations and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of committee. About a year ago, we started looking at new technologies for our snow and ice operations, and in January of this year, we demoed this product. And what Vasella will do is they will install road sensors throughout our city. They will help us specifically target when we're looking at forecasting on what we should do and how we should treat our streets. Currently, we use a lot of road salt, and we do pre-treat with road salt. This will allow us to be more targeted in some of these areas and to use more brine, which obviously brine is made from rock salt. We have our own brine makers. It's about 3 cents a gallon because what happens when we're applying the road salt, and if these storms start out at rain, a lot of it is dissipated before it ever could be used. Also, when we pre-treat with road salt, and we have to start 8 hours, 9 hours before the storm to be able to hit all the streets. And there's a lot of bounce and scatter, as we call it, as the salt hits the ground. It bounces to the curb. The cars move it around. So obviously, being able to use more brine is going to save us money, and it's going to be a lot more efficient operation. What we currently have, and we are going to run our current program, our forecasting program. We get one general forecast, and we call them throughout the storms of what they're predicting. But with this product, we will be able to target, let's say, Highland Square versus a Triplet, an Ellet, or because everybody knows there could be a lot different accumulation from Smith Road Hill to Hellbush Hill. Okay, it could be snowing in one part of the city and not in the other. So this operation, and part of this other part is S3 Technologies, was a local company here in Akron, will help us predict these storms. So this, we really feel like, and we've done our due diligence of looking at this, of what the forecast is going to be and what the product is to put down. It will help us with some of our other products that we use to help in our snow operation. So it's going to be less equipment out there because we're going to use more brine and less trucks. It's also going to save money. And there are times when a storm is forecasted, we do bring employees in, and sometimes they're on standby. Okay, you see that mostly. You'll see ODOT sitting on the expressways waiting for the storm to start. So this will help us target better, less downtime with our equipment, and overall improve our operations of our snow and ice operations in the winter.
All right, thank you. Sounds interesting. All right, committee members, any questions or comments for Mr. Ludlow? Any other council members in chambers or online? No? Okay. Chris, what would you like this?
Consent's fine.
Consent, okay. Committee?
Motion for consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion, a second for consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We'll put that on the consent agenda. Moving on to 18, if you could, please, Sarah.
Item number 18 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract or contracts utilizing Sourcewell's cooperative sourcing contract with Safeware, Inc. for the purchase of training equipment to prepare employees to respond during snow and ice events and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Mr. Ludlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of committee. This is a driving simulator that we're going to purchase, and with this, we will get a 5-year software package with it without upgrades. What this simulator will do, it'll be housed out at Public Works in our triplet facility, and it will be designed, and it has the capability of all the trucks that we use, whether it's Kenworth or Mack. It will be specific to that, and then you'll be able to dial in what type of storm, whether you're just pre-treating with brine or actually you're in a snowstorm with 6, 8, 10 inches of snow. We did a survey just in our Parks division. Out of our 34 employees in Parks, over 70% have less than 5 years service. So a lot of them don't have a lot of experience. So this simulator will not only simulate for our snow and ice operations, it also will do our sanitation. So we get new employees in our sanitation department. This will allow us to dial in a sanitation truck with the sidewind, you know, with the picking, so they can sit in there and they could simulate as they're driving down the street how to pick these cans or containers up around parked cars, what's the safe way to do it. It also will have a software package where we can do our street cleaning and sweeping the streets. And it also will have police and fire. So a fire truck, it'll simulate a fire truck driving through traffic. We can help train these employees on the simulator. And then for police, the same thing, driving through traffic, triggering lights or not triggering lights, the same with paramedics. So this simulator can be used for all our divisions, whether it's safety or service. It's something we demoed a couple years ago, but they've refined it. We didn't feel like it was really ready, but now this new product, it's a Sourcewell product through the state. And I invite all of you, when we do get it in, I'd love for you to come out and try it out because it's very, very interesting, and I think it will really help our operation.
Thank you, Chris. As you were speaking, it sounds really interesting. I'm glad you gave us the invitation because I would love to come out and give this a shot, especially when you mentioned it includes, police and fire and street cleaning. I've rode around with the snowplow drivers, operators a few times, and I've never been behind the wheel. So I'd love to give this a shot. So thank you. Committee members, any questions or comments? If not, I do see Councilman Fusco, his hand is raised.
Yes, thank you. And this is a long time coming. We had initially spoke about this in 2019 after that storm that we kind of struggled with.
Sure.
And one of the things we identified was the fact that we called global warming. I don't know what you're going to want to call it, but nothing major of late. But that lack of experience in this simulator, and I recall a couple years ago, you guys looking at that, this does seem to be supersized because I don't think that part of the discussion was the police and fire safety.
It was
piece.
not in the package we looked at, and you're right.
Yeah.
This was a conversation out of the Snow and Ice Task Force, to purchase a simulator to help. And you know what? No matter if you have 5 years or 30, it doesn't hurt to retrain,
Exactly
to go
right.
through it again.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. I think it's very cool, and appreciate you bringing this forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions or comments? If not, Chris, consent agenda is okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Motion for consent.
Second.
All in favor of consent?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to the next one, please, Sarah.
Item number 19 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids for improvements to the water mains on Arborwood Drive and Glen Echo Drive in the City of Akron water service area in Hudson, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of committee. We have a section of water main in Hudson that's chronically breaking. So this project will help us replace that water main on Glen Echo, on Arborway Drive. And also we are going to install about 300 feet of new water main to loop this neighborhood, because currently when we get a water main break, we have to, when we shut the water main off, there's no way to backfeed it between neighbors, and we lose a whole neighborhood. So this will improve water quality, and obviously, this chronically breaking main, we're going to get rid of it and upgrade. Well, not both. One's going to be brand new. The one that we're going to replace is just between 50 and 60 years old, and the soils seem to be degrading that pipe. So we will replace that in this project. And just to be clear, there is a Hudson surcharge that they build up a fund, and that fund will be used to do both of these projects. The Akron ratepayers through the regular water capital will not be funding this. This is something we do in Hudson to keep their system up and running, is that surcharge that each of their residents pay every month.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, questions or comments? Any other council members? All right, is consent okay on this one, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Committee?
Make a motion for consent.
All right, I have a motion and a second for consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to the next one is number 20.
Number 20 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract after publicly advertising for bids or requesting and receiving quotes or requests for proposals for facility improvements at community centers and downtown buildings to prevent and/or repair water leaks and declaring an emergency.
Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of committee. Our community centers and our downtown buildings we own, it seems like we were always very reactive to some of these measures that are needed. So Jim Hall and the staff out there, Anthony and John Malish, they've put together a program to be more proactive instead of reactive. And Jim Batten, I should say, he was very instrumental in this. So we want to put together like a 5-year plan. In the first year, it's going to be the building envelope. So if the roof is leaking, if the parapets are leaking, if the windows are leaking, we need to stop the damage first and get the building tied up. In the second year, we will look at doing those repairs, whether it's drywall, and we will do the other infrastructure as we go on. And then the last year, it'll be the painting and the flooring. So there's no use repainting or fixing drywall if you don't stop the leak. So this year, we're going to be very active in stopping and tightening up the building envelope, which obviously will help the efficiency of these community centers and downtown buildings. So with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Committee members, any other council members? All right, Councilman Lombardo.
Thank you. Mr. Little, the amount in the budgeted cost, is this per year or?
Per year.
Okay.
So we'll put it was in the capital budget, and we'll put it in the capital budget for next year.
Okay, got it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Is consent agenda okay?
Yes, sir.
Motion for consent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to the next one, Sarah, 21.
Item number 21 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids for the purchase of 2 substation transformers for the water reclamation facility and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Mr. Luddle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of committee. Down at WRF, at our wastewater plant, we have 3 transformers. The incoming power is 69,000 volts. These transformers take it down to an operating voltage of 12,470. Last year, we replaced one of these transformers. They were installed between 1962 and 1969. The lead time on these transformers is about 4 years. Tom Smith did extensive work on this last year with the rebuild of the one. And what this will allow us to do is to bid out and get 2 new remanufactured transformers, and then we will sell these old transformers back as a core charge to whoever does it. And then later we will have legislation bring before you because we will bid out the installation of these. So this will allow us to get these remanufactured transformers ordered. It's going to take a few months to get these, but it's more or less the protection of our wastewater plant and to continue to operate at a high efficiency.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Committee members, any questions or comments for him? Any other council members? All right, well, Chris, is consent okay on this one?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Make a motion for
Motion
consent.
for consent. Second.
I have a motion and a second for consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to number 22, please.
Number 22 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract or contracts with Summit Metro Parks relating to the repair and improvements to the University Avenue Bridge and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Chris Little.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of committee. The University of Avenue Bridge, which is the bridge from Broadway over to Akron U. This is a preventive maintenance or rehab project. So talking about the Heritage Trail Phase 4, Metro Parks is working on the trail. And what we did, we went and applied for bridge funds to do this work on this bridge. The total project's about 1.6 million. We received about 1.5 million. So it's 95.5 funding. So what we're going to do is work with Metro Parks. They're actually going to manage this project for us because they're doing the trail underneath. So they're going to, this project, and they're going to bid it. There'll be a wider sidewalk on the south side of the bridge to extend for a protected bike lane. So currently, when you get on the towpath or the Heritage Trail, you get on right there at Mill Street under the bridge, and you can go all the way out to Kent. Well, coming south, they're gonna pick it up there under the Mill Street Bridge, and the bike trail will go south under the University Bridge, and there'll be a connector to bring you up on the east side or the Akron U side of the bridge, and then you will ride across the University Bridge, and then when you get to the west side of the bridge, there'll be a connector to take you down because of the railroad tracks. Obviously, we can't put a connector on the trail from one side of the tracks to the other. The railroad would never allow that. So then they will improve the trail all the way south to the old schoolhouse. That'll be that phase of the trail. But the bridge itself, it's going to be a lot of the work underneath. The deck, the beams, there'll be sounding, removing concrete, there'll be patching concrete, there'll be a new relief, there'll be new joint repairs on the bridge. And at the same time, we are going to look at installing brackets for the steam system and the chilled water system in anticipation that future connecting to Akron U for our Akron Energy project. So that will be built into the project to put these brackets in for the future of the expansion of steam and chilled water from downtown to Akron University.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Committee members, any questions or comments for Mr. Little? Any other council members? Anyone in chambers, online? All right, Chris, is consent agenda okay on this one too?
Yes.
Motion for consent.
Second.
I have a motion, a second for consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to number 23. Sarah, if you could read that in.
Number 23 is an ordinance declaring the necessity of determining to proceed with and levying special assessments for the improvement of certain streets in the city by constructing, reconstructing, and repairing concrete sidewalks, driveway approaches, curbs, retaining walls, and installing roof drain pipes, all in accordance with petitions submitted by property owners under the 2022 citywide sidewalk program and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Little.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of committee. Yes, this is the 2022 sidewalk program that was completed last year. It's similar to the resurfacing, so this will allow us to send invoices to the property owners that received the improvements of this sidewalk program. I respectfully would ask to suspend the rules like we did in the other ones to levy these assessments to Summit County tax. There were 218 addresses that were done in this program. So this year, I just want to give you a quick update on the sidewalk program that we broke it up in 2 phases. And the first phase is done, and the contractor is doing very well on the second phase of the sidewalk program.
Thank you, Mr. Little. I do got a question. The contractor, are we still having one contractor or multiple contractors? Where's that stand?
This year, we did have two, Supreme and Trimore, which are both local to Akron.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Committee members, I see Mr. Lombardo.
Thank you. I remember when we talked about this last time, again, going back to the update, you know, we were behind in 21. I didn't hear you say, like, we're up to speed. Like, of course, this is 24. Anybody that submitted now in 24 probably won't get to it in the first of 25, something like that. So are we through 23? Will we be through 23?
We're through. 23 is in the queue right now. They may not be done, but they're in the queue with the program because the mayor, you know, and this council, we put more money in the sidewalk
Yes.
program. Obviously, a lot more.
Yes.
So our goal was to try to catch up. Now, if someone put their request in at the end of 23, I'll get you an update. It may not be in the 24 program. But when this piece of legislation we're talking about currently, 22, we were about 2.5 years behind.
Yeah.
Okay, so the ones that in this legislation may have put their request in at the end of 20. That's how far behind we were.
Right. Okay.
So doing this year, I'll get you an update, sir. I'll get all of council an update to tell you where we're at. But we should be within the calendar year and only about a year behind, if that, okay?
Mm-hmm. And another question is, I noticed some sidewalk improvements along Home Avenue where there's a lot of businesses. Was that the business that did the request, or did the city?
Yes, the business requested that.
Okay. And that's the way it has to work, right?
Yep. Now, I'd have to have specific address, because some businesses go ahead and do it themselves. They don't even do it in our program, okay? Some will hire their own contractor and do it, especially driveway aprons.
Well, I know it involved, you know, the cut down of the tree and the stump and everything.
Well, then
like
it was
that.
us.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilman. Good questions. Anyone else online or in chambers with us? All right, Mr. Luttle, I think you mentioned suspension of the rules.
Yes, sir.
Yep, I'll make that motion to suspend the rules with a favorable report.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for suspension of the rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, that was number 23. Moving on to, I think we got two more left, 24.
Number 24 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for and, if awarded, accept and expend grant funding from the U.S. Department of Transportation Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Grant and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. Mr. Luttle, I see Casey is here too. Is this under her?
Yeah, Casey's going to present. She's been working very hard on this since she started with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Camber and committee members. This is legislation we're submitting earlier than we normally would because of the break. It's to allow us to apply for CF Round 2 grant funds. CFI is Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Grant. It's a federal grant made possible by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and it falls under the Department of Transportation, more specifically the Federal Highway Administration. Round 2 is expecting $1.3 billion in funds awarded nationally through the grant. And the purpose of that money is to encourage, cities, municipalities all over the country to deploy public charging infrastructure. It's going to help support existing electric vehicles, but also more adoption of electric vehicles, both of which are key for greenhouse gas reduction, air quality improvement. So it's a very important grant and a lot of money in round 2. We're actually now not expecting a round 3, which is, part of my push to make a try for this. I believe the city of Akron, I know the city of Akron applied in round 1 and we didn't get awarded. So hoping to take another swing at this essentially.
All right, thank you, Casey. Committee members, any questions or comments? Any other council members? Casey, I do got a question. So kind of paint a picture for me, the transportation charging stations, would that be on like city-owned property, or how would that work if we were able to get this grant?
It needs to be on publicly accessible property. Because the grant is due August 28th, I expect that we would probably be prioritizing city-owned property to sort of, be able to get the application in that time frame. It's possible that there might be a few exceptions to that, but I think we'd be primarily focused on city-owned property.
Okay, thank you. All right, real quick before we ask any questions or comments. Okay. Casey, consent agenda okay?
Yes, that's okay.
All right, thank you.
Motion for consent.
Motion for consent. Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second for consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We'll put that on consent agenda. And we do have one more in front of us. If Sarah can read it in, it's 24A.
24A is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids for construction of the Renewable Energy Facility Polymer System Improvements Project and construction management services related thereto and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. And Chris Ludlow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this project will let us replace and upgrade our polymer system down at the Renewable Energy Facility, which is just across the river from WRF. As you know, we send all our sludge across the river. It's a very high water content, and they dewater it. The water that they send back goes back through our full treatment. For full treatment, it doesn't go to the river, obviously. And what they do with this sludge, they dewater it twice. It goes in our digesters, and then they use that sludge. They burn it, and what it does is generate electricity. So they generate enough electricity for their whole operation, and then they send electricity back across the river, and it helps us reduce our electrical needs about 40%. So if we did not have this renewable energy facility, we'd be sending about 80 million gallons of sludge a year to the landfill. So just think about how much sludge, how much trucking that would be. This is going to be the thing of the future. Most all plants are going to have to go this. We're just way ahead of the time. Well, this system that we're replacing, these polymer tanks, are about 35 years old. They're all flat bottom tanks. It's tough to clean them. You have confined space because the chemical lays on the bottom of the tank. All the new tanks and the new building, these tanks will be funneled at the bottom. They'll be coned. So all the material will be able to be easily cleaned out. You won't have to ever put anybody in these tanks with confined space to clean them. And it also is going to help us improve our operation. So with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Committee members, any questions or comments for Mr. Ludlow? Any other council members with us? Wow. Okay. All right, Mr. Ludlow, this came in today. Is consent agenda okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Committee.
Motion for consent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Well, that's some good stuff today, and I appreciate that, Mr. Ludlow and Casey. And nothing else come before us. We are adjourned. Thanks.
Our next committee today will be the Public Safety Committee, and we'll begin in just a few minutes here. The Public Safety Committee members are McKittrick, Kamer, Lombardo, Hanna, and Davis. Thank you. Okay, our next committee of the day is the Public Safety Committee. Those committee members are McKittrick, Kamer, Lombardo, Hannah, and Davis. We do have all committee members present whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Clerk Viviano. I'd like to call the Public Safety Committee to order, and we have previous minutes to approve. If I could get a motion.
Motion to approve previous meeting minutes.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We have one ordinance to come before us today. It's authorizing the mayor to accept and expend a Violence Against Women Act grant administered by the Office of Criminal Justice Services, authorizing the Director of Law to enter into agreements with Oriana House, Inc. to implement the grant by continuing to fund 2 investigators for the domestic violence unit and declaring an emergency. I think we have our Chief Prosecutor, Mr. Morgan, here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For almost 30 years now, the City of Akron Prosecutor's Office has applied for and received a grant funded by the Violence Against Women Act of 1994 and administered by the State of Ohio Office of Criminal Justice Services. That grant allowed us to create and has such sustained our domestic violence unit. Our domestic violence unit is comprised of our domestic violence prosecutor, Ms. Connell, who's here with me today, and 2 domestic violence investigators who assist with the building the cases and assisting the courtroom prosecutors as they try to move those cases forward throughout the system to get the best results we can for our survivors. The grant is nominal in nature, but there is a match. The grant award is usually about $45,000. 25% of that is the city's match. And of course, if any of you have any questions about our domestic violence unit, Ms. Connell can certainly help you out. If you have any questions about the grant, we're happy to answer any.
Thanks, Mr. Morgan. I can say over the years I've been familiar with this, and this is a great unit that's very helpful to navigate through the criminal justice system. Is really important, and I appreciate you reaching out to me in regard to this, and I do wholeheartedly support this. Do we have any questions from any committee members? Any comments? Sarah, is anybody hands raised in the council there?
I don't see any hands raised today.
Any other council members at all? Okay. Mr. Morgan, what's your pleasure on this?
Consent would be fine, sir.
Committee, can I get a motion?
Motion for consent.
Second. We have a motion and a second for consent. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, very good. We'll get that on the consent agenda. We'll get this out to council tonight, and the committee has nothing further to come before us. We will be adjourned. Thanks, Mr. Morgan.
Our next committee today is the Budget and Finance Committee, and it will begin at 3 o'clock. Those committee members are Lombardo, Amobian, Fusco, Boys, and Somerville. Again, that's the Budget and Finance Committee, and it will begin at 3 o'clock. Thank you. Okay, it's 3 o'clock, and our final committee meeting of the day is the Budget and Finance Committee. Those committee members again are Lombardo, Amobian, Fusco, Boys, and Somerville. All committee members are present whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. I'd like to start the Budget and Finance Committee meeting this afternoon. I would like to get a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
So moved.
A motion. And a second. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Any opposed?
Aye. Any
opposed? Very good. Okay, we have 4 pieces coming before us. The first being a ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts with National Testing Network to provide background check services for Akron's safety forces and declaring an emergency. See, we have Mr. Fricker here.
Actually, Montrella Jackson also joined online. I think she might be
Okay.
speaking on this one.
All right.
Hello, it doesn't look like my camera's working, but hopefully you all can hear me.
Yes.
So the legislation before you today is to acquire services for a background check vendor to free up the fire personnel for background check investigations.
Okay. So normally our safety forces did the background check themselves, and this is to enter a contract with National Testing to do it for us, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, very good. Questions from committee members? I see Councilwoman Linda Amobian.
I think you asked the question, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from our committee members? I do not see any. Any other council members? What would be your pleasure on this, Ms. Jackson?
So we're hoping to move forward with hiring positions this year. So the quicker we could get it processed, the better for filling the vacancies that we would need those background check completed for.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Motion, a second? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Motion passes.
Aye.
Thank you. Montrell,
Thank you very much. Sorry about my camera.
no problem. Second piece we have is, excuse me, ordinance authorizing, went to the first one again. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Law or her designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Voorhees, Sater, Seymour, and Peace LLP for the provision of professional legal services for the city of Akron and declaring an emergency. We have Mr. Brian Angeloni.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Yes, before you, we have an ordinance authorizing a contract between the City Law Department and Voorhees. They are experienced labor and employment attorneys. Specifically in this instance, we're looking to retain Ms. Ashley Manful to help us with a specific arbitration. And obviously, because of the confidential nature of legal services, I'm not going to go too in the weeds, but would be happy to speak with any of you individually if there are any further questions or concerns about that.
Okay, very good. Very good. Any questions from our committee members? Councilwoman Linda Amobian?
I'm assuming, Mr. Angeloni, and I don't know, that this 50,000 is just an estimate, or we think this is going to be the final cost?
So typically, the way that we work with our legal services, it's on a per hour basis, and it is a billable hour, meaning that they will bill us in 1/10 of an hour increments, 6-minute increments for their time. So we really don't know what the ultimate number is, and they really can't necessarily give us that when they're working on an hourly basis. It's just about what the end of the day, how many hours they've billed.
Thank you.
Consent agenda, okay? Or suspend the rules?
We would look for suspension of the rules if possible.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Our third item this afternoon is an ordinance authorizing the issuance of a bond of the city in a principal amount not to exceed $8,500,000 for the sale to the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund of the State of Ohio to finance the cost of renewable energy facility polymer system improvements, pledging certain revenues from the city's wastewater system on a subordinate basis to secure the payment of the principal of and interest on the bond, and authorizing the execution and delivery of the bond, the trust agreement, and other documents, and taking of other actions related to the issuance and sale of the bond, and declaring an emergency. Now we have Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the financing that goes along with the polymer system improvement project that is that's happening down at the WRF facility down in the valley. So I believe that legislation for the construction itself was presented at the Public Service Committee. This is the financing that goes along with that project. So the Engineering Bureau was able to get a 45-year bond for this project. The current rate for that project is about 3.18%, although that will not be fully determined until it is actually awarded, which will be later this year. But this is one of those projects that we are sponsoring other projects within the state of Ohio, and then with that sponsorship, we will get a 0.1% interest reduction on this loan. So we've done some of those in the past. This is another project that will have a sponsorship component to it that will save a little bit on the interest on this loan.
Very good. Very good, thank you. Is there any questions from any committee members or other council members? And what would be your pleasure, Mr.
I would like suspension of the rules on this.
Suspend the rules? Can I get a motion for suspension? Motion, and a second from?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? Very good, motion. Very good, motion. Thank you. Okay. All right, our final piece this afternoon is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into an agreement or agreements with Youth Success Summit in furtherance of the activities and services it provides to organizations serving Akron's youth and declaring an emergency. And we have, I heard your name was Rochelle, but can you introduce yourself? And
yes, thank
welcome.
you, Mr. Chair, committee members, Council President Somerville. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm Rochelle Bordell. I'm the Education and Health Strategist. And expanding out-of-school time offerings to improve academic indicators of success has been a central theme of my career, which is why I'm proud to work with our community's new and enhanced out-of-school time network, Youth Success Summit. You'll hear us refer to it from here on out as YSS casually. This year, I've been working with YSS leaders on behalf of the Mayor's Office to design a partnership that will enhance our community's ability to provide safe, enriching environments that foster academic growth, essential social skills, and overall well-being for children beyond the classroom. I've also collaborated with YSS leadership, representatives from Akron Public Schools, and my colleague Danico Buckley-Knight on current YSS initiatives, including summer youth employment and professional development for out-of-school time providers. Danico has been involved with YSS since the beginning on number of planning teams and leadership committees, and he's currently leading the development of one of the organization's major pillars, sports and wellness. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Danico.
Thank you, Rochelle, and good afternoon. Again, I am Danico Buckley-Knight, and I serve as the Youth Opportunity Strategist in Mayor Malik's office. The city has supported Youth Success Summit for the past 2 years, and today we are asking Council to please vote on this legislation before the recess for continued support. I am pleased to introduce our guests from Youth Success Summit today. Dr. Ellen McWilliams-Woods is serving as a consultant to create the Youth Success Summit Network. She also is the former Chief Academic Officer and Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction at Akron Public Schools. After retiring from Akron Public Schools, Ellen was asked by United Way and GAR Foundation to lead the community to design an expanded out-of-school time network for Greater Akron. Joining her is the Executive Director of Youth Success Summit, Rachel Tecca. Before taking on her role, she was an administrator at Akron Public Schools, serving in high-ranking positions, including Assistant Superintendent and Chief of Leadership and Learning. Rachel has been leading Youth Success Summit since November of last year, and we also have Dominique Waters and Phoenix Valentine with us. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ellen.
Good afternoon, Chair, Committee Chair, and President Somerville, and my esteemed committee members here. And I want to make sure I also acknowledge Councilwoman Amobian, who is my former boss, that I absolutely need to acknowledge, and a longtime champion for the work that we've done with youth in this community. We are going to spend about 10 or 15 minutes talking about this partnership, this 2-year partnership that we've had so far with the city and with all of you on the design of this Youth Success Summit. And it's called an out-of-school time network. I am pretty confident that all of you in this room spent some time in some out-of-school time activities in your life, whether that was sports, whether that was the Scouts, whether that was in the neighborhood church basement, in a youth group, whatever it was. I bet you could identify some specific things, that skills that helped you develop, which is one of the reasons why you're sitting in this room right now. And our goal is to make those opportunities equitable across all neighborhoods, accessible, eliminating barriers, so that youth, we can dramatically expand those types of opportunities and participation across the city. So we're going to do 3 things. We're going to talk about why our city's investing and expanding these types of out-of-school time opportunities. We're going to talk about why have 75 mid-size like us to large cities, why have they developed these out-of-school time networks, which actually brings together the 100+ nonprofit youth-serving organizations in our city. And then we're also going to weave in what should you expect from this work, and what are the outcomes, and what should you hold us accountable for in this collective that we have with the city and the Youth Success Summit. So all of you know my previous gig for 36 years was in K-12 education. But it was incredible for me to learn before I retired, as I dove into this whole topic of after-school and summer programming, that 80% of a youth's waking hours are actually spent outside of school. So I have spent my entire career focused on 20% of impact, when 80%, when you think of after school, evenings, weekends, summer vacation, all of that out of school time. So that 80% is what we're focused on to say, let's not put all of our eggs in this daytime basket of school. How can we as a community and a city maximize this 80% of youth's time outside of school? The other key thing about this time is that 2 to 6 time is where the highest rate of youth crimes fall. So right in that after-school hours, and that is why police organizations across the country have focused on this out-of-school time as a strategy, as one strategy, as you know, it's not the only strategy, but one strategy in the web of strategies to reduce youth violence in our city. Positive outcomes just for out-of-school time, and when we're talking about out-of-school time, we're talking about large organizations like the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, and then we're talking about small organizations that are in every single ward in the city. It's the Akron Parent Pee Wee football, when you think about sports and cheer that goes with that. It's Urban Vision, it's the Vincent House, it's SWAG, it's First Glance, it's Akron Intercity Soccer, it's Kenmore Wrestling, it's South Street Ministries. It's all of those organizations that are doing unbelievable work every single day in our communities. And there is decades of research on this after school and summer space that when youth participate in after school and summer, they develop those strong essential skills like conflict resolution, teamwork. It's the skills that all of our business partners want. They have reduced risk of violence, higher attendance and graduation rates. They improve grades. They are pathways to workforce. When we're talking about out-of-school time, we're also talking about career, summer youth employment, career exposure opportunities for high school students. So don't just think of camps and recreation type things. We're also talking about career and workforce development strategies. The National League of Cities, that has been important to our city for many years, they estimate for every dollar invested, they have a whole separate division at the National League of Cities just for expansion of after-school and summer programs. That's how much they believe in this strategy. And they believe that for every $1 invested, $3 to $13, that's a big range, but I don't care if we get the $3 to $13 comes back in higher tax payments, higher incomes, and lower crime rate. And then when you dive into equity, this is our work with the Youth Success Summit. This is what we have prioritized as a collective when we brought all the organizations together to focus on equity across neighborhoods, because higher income families spend roughly $3,600 a year in this out-of-school time space, and families with low-income families, it's around $700. So that's where we're expanding access and eliminating barriers so that we can have no differentiation between income on accessing out-of-school time. So that is our challenge, and that is why this community more than 3 years ago said, let's start paying attention to what other cities are doing in this space and figure out how we can maximize these hours rather than the out-of-school time providers who are doing unbelievable work, but they don't have a lot of support. They don't have a lot of opportunities to collaborate. They're all fighting for the same money in this community. Is there a better way that we can do it to maintain the independence of those organizations, but get the collective together to be able to drive real goals and real outcomes for youth? The other kind of overarching, and this is, we just have to say this and say this a million times over because of our history in this city over these past few years, is there the out-of-school time space can also be where we push back against the public narrative that youth who are involved in any kind of crime, or they're the aggressors, they're the, the bad kids that have taken the wrong path, that they're throwaway kind of kids. We just need to be hard on them, lock them up, suspend them, move them out. That is a typical kind of public narrative. For the Youth Success Summit and for our out-of-school time providers, the actual narrative that we have to fuse into this community to make the impact that we want on reducing youth violence and increasing all these essential skills is the fact that children are still developing their brains, some of whom have been adversely affected by trauma, and that goes all the way up to the age of 25. So our approach and our strategies have to be geared towards these are youth who are still developing their brains, and then collectively as a community, we have to make the commitment that we're going to do our part to develop those brains and make sure that they're still growing and developing all the way up till 25. So second piece, so that's why out of school time, and why do we even care about this after school and summer space. So now I want to talk about why an OST network. So why do we need to have a Youth Success Summit that brings all of these organizations together? And we are considered a direct service organization to the out-of-school time staff and to that community. What the research shows across the country, there's 75 who've done this, that when you come together, you get greater power together. You can unite around this access. You can work collectively to eliminate barriers and to look at data very carefully to say, here, let's overlay the youth violence data on top of where all of our out-of-school time providers are. And do we have neighborhoods where we have high incidence of violence and not very many mentoring programs, or not very many programs for high school kids? The Youth Success Summit can then bring those providers together, all those organizations, and say, we have a problem in this neighborhood, and now let's flood it with services. And who can do that? And how can we help? And we can help galvanize some resources in the community and outside the community to make that happen. We also, as a network, can help support bringing outside funding. All of the networks over these 2 years, I talked to nearly, almost probably 40 out-of-school time networks across the country, and they all said, as soon as they formed the network, that made them more attractive to outside and national funding, because large funders will never just give to a single organization, but they will give to a network to make sure the impact is larger than just individual organizations. So here's just examples of organizations that have done some amazing things. The Madison decided to have every single elementary in their county. They wanted after-school services from 3 to 6. Took them 3 years to do it, but they've achieved that as a collective. It's not one organization doing it, it's a network of about 15 organizations. They've also brought in $10 million in the past 10 years just for their organizations in terms of their regular operations and services. Prime Time has focused on quality. They have about 123 organizations who've improved their quality over the past few years. Providence, Rhode Island saw in their data that they didn't have enough services for middle school youth, and that's where middle school youth were falling apart in the city. They decided to focus exclusively on middle school youth, and now they have 2,000 youth participating in programs year-round in Providence, Rhode Island. Youth Prize is an organization in Minneapolis, is an out-of-school time network. One of the things they do is they take disruptive policies, it's called. They train youth who went down and lobbied, because in their state, youth weren't allowed to get any of the unemployment dollars from the COVID dollars. And so in Youth Prize, they got that law repealed, and they have brought $30 million to youth for unemployment benefits during COVID, just for high school youth. And then finally, Boston and Beyond. 10 years ago, Boston decided to do a Summer for All program. They started with 232 students in a citywide summer program that connected youth with all of their cultural institutions in the city. And this past summer, they served over 25,000 youth. So they started with 232, and now they have 25,000. That's the power of a network. That's what the network does, because no one organization could do that. So we have spent the last 2 years bringing together organizations like the Sneakers Academy and other nonprofit out-of-school time organizations in our city to look at them and say, what do you want? And we brought youth together and families and did focus groups, and we have designed exactly what they wanted here in this community for the Youth Success Summit. And Rachel's going to share the highlights of what they've designed.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us. It's been my pleasure to serve in the capacity of Executive Director of this new expanded network. It is a network that is designed for OST providers, by OST providers. So what you see on the slides are the almost 100 different out-of-school time providers that are part of our network. And we're really proud to say that their voices were heard and in the design of what I'm about to share with you. So the mission of the Youth Success Summit is to galvanize the entire community to provide equitable and innovative opportunities where youth build essential skills needed for success in life. Probably my favorite task since I was brought on in November was working with the youth in different high schools across the city. And when we asked the youth, what are the essential skills that you learn in this after-school space? What are the things that you feel are really going to be helpful to you long-term? They were amazing. I know that you know that. Our kids are amazing. But everything that they identified were exactly the same skills that the out-of-school time providers identified, right? And so focusing on all of those professional skills that we know are vital to success in college, in career, and in life, they said they learned those in those after-school spaces. So we're focusing on that youth development in our daily mission. We were looking for that equitable expansion of opportunities across the city and beyond. And we're really proud of the energy and excitement that every out-of-school time provider brings to the table. We focus on 3 different areas with regard to out-of-school time providers. We see ourselves as a service-oriented organization. We're going to respond to the needs of each out-of-school time provider to make sure that we enhance and expand opportunities for youth. So the 3 kind of buckets that we consistently refer to is this bucket around enrichment, right, where those are the traditional after-school programs with regard to academic support, arts and music, leadership development, mentoring. We are just kind of getting off the ground with supporting our providers in that sports and wellness area. I will tell you there's a ton of excitement to be included and for their voices to be heard, and we're moving that work forward nicely. And then the last bucket is around college and career readiness. That community impact of giving our youth those opportunities really talks about making sure we're building those essential skills so that they're successful in life, but reducing youth violence and making sure our kids are prepared for college or career readiness after high school. So the 3 major tasks that the role of Youth Success Summit plays is we are a training and a resource center for any out-of-school time provider within the network. We are a connector for our families, and then we are a systems builder, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but working together collaboratively to expand opportunities for our youth. I get the opportunity to share with you all some of the accomplishments to date. Again, we are official launch very soon. We've had a soft launch over the last 6 months or so. You'll have this slide deck for your reference, but I really would like to highlight two or three major successes. When we talk about our summer youth employment, when we launched the design process 2 years ago, we had around 200 youth working in the summer. Last summer, we were up to about 500 youth. And this summer, with collaboration across multiple organizations, representatives from the city, from the county, from Jobs for Ohio graduates, Akron Public Schools, we were almost to 800 youth employed this summer. And so those are the successes of that systems building that we're really proud of. I wanted to really acknowledge the fact that those type of relationships and collaboration really do kind of synergize the community. I would like to talk a little bit about Danico Buckley Knight was at a meeting and heard that there was an opportunity to support youth out of school, so youth who have either dropped out or graduated without a plan. Found out that there were resources available and built a graduate assistant program for high school graduates to come back and serve their football teams in their communities. So that increased our number of youth from 50 to 130 youth employed last year because of those creativity and collaboration. And then the last area I would love to recognize is this systems builder, expand youth opportunities. Our data really showed, our preliminary data last summer showed less programs at that middle school level. So in partnership with Akron Public Schools, the Vincent House, SWAG, and the Akron Sneaker Academy, we built 2 summer camps for middle school kids in East Akron, as well as South Akron. And so it's been a great collaboration, and to kind of talk a little about that, I'd like to turn it over to Dominique.
Hi, I'm Dominique Waters. It's truly a pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you, Rachel, Ellen, Danico, for the opportunity to share. So I founded the Akron Sneaker Academy back in January, just looking to be innovative. You know, how can we be engaging with our students in the out-of-school time, but still teach them and educate them? I think a lot of it is like they come in, maybe there's a homework support, there's a pizza party and recreational time. I want to still educate and make sure our students are learning outside of school. So I'm born and raised here in Akron, Ohio, in the inner city of Akron, Ohio, and a bulk of my career I've spent in New York City working in fashion on Fifth Avenue. And in 2020, I was like, hey, it's time to get back home, obviously, with everything that was going on. But I noticed when I moved back, the climate here in the city, this is maybe a year before Youth Success Summit was really formed, there was just a need for just us, you know, to really engage our students. So back in 2022, I worked downtown Akron at Unknown, which is a sneaker store co-founded by LeBron James, and they had a huge Nike account, obviously. So we got Jordans and all the really exclusive sneakers, and I would just see so many youth just come by the store and just stare at the shoe wall and just marvel at it. And I'm like, there's something there. There's a way for us to build on that. So my program was formulated to really use the sneaker as a fuel for personal development and academic development. And I was networking and I reached out to Rachel. We had a wonderful conversation. She was like, hey, you can help me co-pilot a summer camp this summer. I said, really? I would love to. So we collaborated with Akron Public Schools. We have 35 amazing middle schoolers from all over the city of Akron engaged in STEAM education through sneakers. And, you know, so far we've taken them to the LeBron Museum for an experience on culture. We've taken them out to the field where they interviewed people about their sneakers and how they like them. Last Friday, we took a visit to the Polymer School. Many of them don't even know what a polymer is, but a huge focus of my program is using the sneaker to fuel that polymer exposure. You know, it's just polymers and rubber. So many of them are like understanding how it functions and how it works. So it has been a true joy to not only give back, but to partner with YSS. They've been extremely welcoming. And they were so gracious to really host a training for us with Akron Public Schools so we can just really be intentional and we can really align. And we have a dynamite team that's doing a phenomenal job. We're in our final week. We have presentations this Thursday so the youth can get excited about what they've learned. But the Sneaker Academy is something I think can revolutionize the out-of-school time space where students are engaged, they're inspired, and they're prepared to be leaders in our community. So I'm excited.
Phoenix, you want to share?
Hello, my name is Phoenix Valentine. I'm currently a senior at East High School. And after high school, my plans are to go to the Marine Corps and become a military police officer. Currently, I've been with Danico in the city of Akron for about 2 months. I'm a summer intern with JOG. And I've been going to meetings with him in the city and kind of like giving my voice on youth, on like how can we like make youth better, and like what to do, like what plans. So I started going to YSS meetings about a month and a half ago. And I got to sit down at the table and like actually like express how I felt as a teenager growing up in this community. And I kind of like put my input on like gave ideas on like what we can do to resort gun violence and get them more engaged in the community. Especially me as an athlete, like my go-to is sports, but that's not everybody's path. So like, you know, getting arts and enrichment and then sports and wellness is a big factor for kids. I got to sit down with them and interview for coaches. So I kind of got to see what like the coaches brought to the table on how they want to help youth. And I kind of made a partnership with them, and we were thinking about creating youth ambassadors. So bringing all the providers to the table and giving information about what they can do for youth. We're going to put that out in the schools so they get a head start to know like there's opportunities in Akron and there's places you can go. So we're thinking about creating that. So having the kids be the voice to other kids to know that there's resources, and if you need anything, you can come to Youth Success Summit. So that's what I've been doing, just giving my voice and trying to just create ideas for youth.
Thank you for the opportunity to share. We're happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you for your presentations. Every one of you had an awesome and inspiring speech, so appreciate you coming today. Do we have any questions or comments from any of our first committee members, Budget Committee? Councilwoman Tina Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's nice to see so many familiar faces. Appreciate the presentation. My question is, so I love the idea of looking at this neighborhood by neighborhood, because we know certain neighborhoods have a lot of resources because they have their own resources, and other neighborhoods have a lot of resources because there's a lot of resources brought in. But there are neighborhoods that frankly have some fledgling organizations, and I've experienced this in Kenmore, trying to bring those organizations together to kind of weave the school day together. And it's very difficult with two, you know, when you've got two organizations that are kind of carrying the weight. How do you see this program maybe, and there's the added issue of you can't just bring in a whole bunch of new people and like take over the neighborhood, because people don't like that, and rightfully so. How do you plan to kind of, do you have a plan, or is that what you're working on, to create this kind of, this overlay in identifying, clearly you've identified some organizations, like how do we fill some of those gaps within the neighborhood? Are you looking at that? Are you looking primarily on bringing more resources in? How does that work?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We absolutely are looking at, we had some preliminary data collection last summer that looked at summer youth engaged in summer learning last summer. We did have the ability to look at that by neighborhood. We know right now, though, that data is impacted by ESSER funds and ARPA funds. So it's kind of like a first glance, but we're going to do some data collection again this summer. To really identify what type of program are in each neighborhood, right? So if, in my mind, if all of the arts programs are in the Firestone cluster and there's no arts programs throughout the rest of the city, how do we, as a network, look to expand those programs across the city so all of our youth have equitable access to those? So we're at the kind of beginning phases of that. That could be an expansion of the same program. It could be a new program. It could be a collaboration among a couple different providers. But I think that speaks to the fact that we are a network, that we don't have all the answers. We're going to bring people to the table and have those conversations on how do we support and grow those opportunities for our youth. Ellen, you want to add?
Yeah, we also will have a couple program coaches who will be assigned to sort of a caseload of nonprofit organizations to go out and just listen to what do you need. I mean, we have done all this needs assessment with the current ones, and it's wide. You know, I'm a nonprofit, but I don't have a board that's really functioning, so I need support with that. Or do I really want to be a nonprofit? I'm struggling with mental health with kids, and I have nowhere to go. I want to do mentoring, but I don't know how to set up a mentoring program. Sitting in this partnership with the city, listening to all the ARPA grantees who were pitching their ideas, half of them said they wanted to do mentoring, and we looked at each other and said, we have some mentoring organizations. They don't need to do that heavy lift. They just need to partner. So it's so individualized for each organization. What do they need? How to support them? There's no notion of, that, oh, we're going to just bring programs in. It's all going to be starting with that neighborhood-based programs there, and then start to work as a team to say, how do we fill in any gaps that exist?
Sure, follow up, go ahead.
I appreciate that. And I would just recommend, like, in neighborhoods where there are community development corporations, they know those partners. They may know partners that you don't know that maybe have built trust. And, I know ward council people as well. We're more tapped into the community maybe on the ground than others. I know I would love to be a part of finding solutions, so.
That would be absolutely wonderful. And we would love, now that we've done this soft launch, but we're official now. I guess tonight we're official. But we will have an official launch at some point, but we would love to start to get out to ward meetings and start to spread the word in the neighborhoods too, and work very closely with each of you.
Appreciate
that. Would be great.
That'd be great, yes. I think my first ward opening is in March 25. If you're available, I'll sign up. Anyhow, Councilwoman Linda Amobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and hello, Dr. McMillan Woods. I see you are still around us, our children, and trying to help us out. So thank you very much for that. Thank you all for the presentation. I have a ton of questions here. I know I don't have much time, but where is this program housed?
So we have offices in the Andrew Jackson House, but we see the work happening out in the community within the out-of-school time program sites.
So are you under the umbrella of some organization, or you are independently operating?
We are our own organization.
My question has a lot to do, like I said, I have a ton of questions here. And it sounds like you answered some of them in terms of trying to get people to collaborate, work together, and not, duplicate services that are out there. And that's part of the challenge, because we have so many children with so many needs. And when you hear about a lot of these programs, you hear so much overlap. And if we could get many of these programs to work together, we can certainly touch more children. So all of the nonprofits, and this is question to Danico, the nonprofits that we have been funding, are they going to be working with this group, or is that the hope for some of them or most of them? Because I know that when we talked about funding them, we wanted to have some outcomes that they can tell us that they are these deliverables, that they're showing us that the work they're doing is of value and they're reaching children. That's the one question. The second question is the long term. When kids leave some of these programs, are we kind of following them? And how do we kind of track the success that we are seeing and trying to see that it's prolonged?
So I'll answer the first part. Absolutely, yes. The VIP grantees who were funded over the last 2 years prior to the soft launch, they were highly encouraged to get connected with at that time. We were calling it the Out of School Time Network. Last summer, many of those organizations joined the Out of School Time Network. So we were able to obtain data, which is what they referenced a few minutes ago related to last summer's data collection. Moving forward, we are still encouraging all of our VIP grantees to be connected, especially if they're serving youth in that out-of-school time space.
the second question has to do with the long-term impact and how we following the children once they've been exposed to this program. I heard the young man who's going to the Marines, and sounds like he has a plan, which is fantastic. I love to hear that young people have a plan before they leave high school, because you kind of get lost once you leave high school without a plan. So it's nice to know that you have a plan. So,
Yeah.
what is the plan to kind of
I think
follow them? And see?
Phoenix is a great example, because she does have a very clear plan for graduation and a very clear plan for the military, and then she's going to have a very clear plan after she returns, because about 5 of us on this side of the table will be hiring her, because she has been unbelievable. And has sat with all of the adults and offered the most important feedback that we've gotten and the input that we've received, and helping us really build out the youth leadership that we will have built into this, this network. To answer your question about the data, the best networks across the country have citywide data collection system. We have a huge advantage because we have the Summit Education Initiative that already has a big jump start on that, because they already have all the data from the school systems, and they had started the data collection with the out-of-school time. So we should be able to, as we now officially launch and do a bigger data collection this summer, it'll start in September. We'll look back and say, who did you serve this summer? Year to year, we should be able to follow the youth to see what type of programs they were in and what at least their academic results were. And then because we're including work-based learning in this too, we should be able to see, did they then go into a summer youth employment? Did they go into an internship at the police station or the fire station? Did they go into a rec job? And follow them all the way through the programming that Danico Buckley-Knight has been instrumental in this work program all the way up to 24 years old. So there's no reason why we can't do that, as long as we collectively continue to build out this data system, which we have a huge head start on.
Mr. Chair, I won't ask all my questions if I can continue just with one more.
Okay.
You identified that children who are in higher, more affluent families, the families spend about $3,600 on them, and the lower end about $700. Are we talking about exposure to trips and all kinds of things, or what are we talking about seeing that difference?
The big difference is the paid out-of-school time opportunities. So if any of you have had children in football or cheerleading or basketball or some of the STEM programming, I mean, there typically is a cost to that. Now, in our community, we've tried to make sure that we have some nonprofit organizations who have the funding to be able to offer at least some of their programming free. But one of the interesting things that happened in Madison, Wisconsin, is they dramatically expanded their out-of-school time programming, and they had set goals on expansion, but they didn't pay attention to equity. And then 6 or 7 years later, after they had had this huge expansion in after-school and summer youth participation, they realized that it was the middle to high-income youth. They had expanded exactly where they didn't want, because the providers were doing more and more paid camps and sessions that youth from the neighborhoods where they were trying to impact the most couldn't afford to participate. Now, what Boston did instead, Boston, all of their Summer for All programming, those 25,000 youth, that is all free programming. So they have galvanized the entire city and secured outside funding, state funding. They've lobbied down in Columbus for some additional funding to keep up with that. But that is free programming that they offer. And that, you know, of course, Councilwoman Amobian, you won't be surprised to know that that's what we're trying to do here, that we don't want to expand programming for kids that can already afford it. We want to expand for all youth across the city.
Awesome. Thank you. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Very good. Yes. Is there any other questions, Mr. Fusco?
In the interest of time, the partnership I'm sure Danico's working with, the Recreation Bureau, and the cost pieces and the value that is there and perhaps could be enhanced. Any comments on that?
We're working very closely with the Recs and Park Department. They're on every single one of our teams at different levels of staff, and their director is on, I think, 3 of our teams. So they are very closely working with us. And they have some great programming. They absolutely want to be a part of, how can we all get better and how can we keep expanding and partner more and look at cost type things. So they're right at the table. Yeah.
The cost, because there's a cost attached, oftentimes for the parents. The second piece that I'm curious about is you'd said through 24 years old, right? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we're really focusing kind of that K-12 space is our focus area, but we also know that we have youth that, are out of school or graduate without a plan. And so we've been very fortunate to work with a couple different organizations to help move them into that work development space. It's really hard to say no when kids are in need. So it's been really good work and really energizing work. So really K-12 is our sweet spot and where we're focusing.
Good.
Thank you. Oh, Councilwoman Sharon Connor.
Thank you all for coming. So many questions, but I'll limit myself to just a few. I love the networking idea. I think that every group has its own things to bring to the table, and when you put everybody together, you can share them. I think the idea of bringing people into the neighborhoods is wonderful, but we need to never lose sight of the grassroots people, as Councilwoman Boyes said, because they're the ones that live there. They're the ones you run into in the grocery store and all that. So I think that's critical. I'd like to ask, what is the role of Akron Public Schools, and does this also expand out into our charter school or other school students? And my second one is, can you address some of the mental health needs and how you address those with our youth?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll address the first question and then let Ellen address the second. We are very fortunate to have a great working relationship with Akron Public Schools. They have representation, again, on many of our committees that are supporting this work with liaisons in whatever area is kind of needed. So Tiffany Lundy, who supports the out-of-school time work for Akron Public Schools, is one of our co-leads. We have the Chief of Staff represented, just really good representation and partnership to support our young people outside of that school day.
I will add to that, just because I've been steeped in the research on all these other networks, is the RAND Corporation, which is one of the biggest, researchers nationally. They studied all of these networks across the country, and they found the 2 most important elements of successful out-of-school time networks where they actually were hitting the outcomes was very tight relationship with the school district, and the school district was the key partner so that the out-of-school time wasn't doing just completely separate things from the district. And then the second thing was mayoral and city major support. I mean, those were the 2 things. There were lots of other, here's best practices, but if you didn't have those 2 things, the networks tended not to hit their outcomes. The mental health piece, when we did a needs assessment with all of our out-of-school time providers, that rose to the top for them. They said they needed help and support with, and this was, obviously we were still coming right out of COVID during that time too, that they needed support. And it wasn't just youth. mental health support, but it also was their staff, and high turnover rate with their staff and mental health kind of concerns there. So we have put into place ongoing training like the mental health first aid that Love Akron is doing for us. One of our big tenets is we want to have providers train providers. So we have excellence everywhere. So Love Akron is an out-of-school time provider because they do serve youth in some of their programming, and they're doing the training for mental health. We also noticed in some of that early data, though, that we do not have enough programs really dedicated to kind of deeply addressing mental health prevention. And so we'll also be focusing on working with organizations to build in those types of strategies. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And can I just add one other thing? I think it's also important to just highlight in the sports sector, it's also, we added the word wellness for the mental side. As a football coach at East High School, I'm also a qualified mental health specialist, and it really does a lot of good for me to have those tools to be able to pull out with the student athletes. So making sure that our out of school time providers in arts and enrichment and college and career readiness, but specifically in sports and wellness, hitting that mental health piece is going to be key.
Okay, great. All right, well, I have one final comment. So just this weekend, we had cheerleaders on one corner selling lemonade on North Hill, and then on another corner, our Patterson Park Vikings were raising money for their uniforms. So I guess my question is, should this pass tonight, when do we first see the fruits of maybe, getting the kids getting the benefits of these dollars? I guess I could say that.
I think I would say, we're launching this month.
Okay.
I would say that part of it, and this is what retirement looks like for me, because I had to do this work. I am going to stay on for another year just to work on getting the national funding and getting a corporate business. That's going to be my major focus. So probably within, a year, our goal is obviously getting funding to support all of the networking and the training, but we want to set up a separate, we have in our fund development plan, a separate fund that we wouldn't run, that would sit in some other location and foundation here in town, but that would be for out-of-school time providers, which would include all the sports and wellness so that it isn't solely dependent on kids doing fundraising to see if they participate. So I would say we should start to see in a year, and then every single year, just like Madison, Wisconsin, raised $10 million over that time, and that was exclusively for out-of-school time providers. That wasn't for their operation, that was for the providers.
Okay.
Can I add, though, as well, I think the immediate impact is the quality of that experience for our young people and the ability to communicate the opportunities for our youth. Many times, what the research really showed for us initially was that families would say that they found out about after-school experiences from schools and teachers. And when we asked schools and teachers what the out-of-school time opportunities were, they said they didn't know. So obviously there's a disconnect, right?
Yeah.
So I think the immediate impact is, are we clearly communicating what we already have, these wonderful, rich opportunities for our kids? Can we make sure that everyone's aware of those and get them connected? And then the quality of that experience for each child, that should be felt immediately.
Okay. And then, of course, the diversity of this city, where a lot of those messages need to be communicated in different languages, right?
Yes, I have some experience with that on North Hill, and so we will definitely make sure that across the city that those messages are translated.
Awesome, awesome. I'll ask Danica, what would be your pleasure on this piece of legislation as far as suspension of the rules?
Yes, sir, I would ask suspension of the rules.
Okay, very good. Can I get a motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Motion carries. So again, thank you for your time and everything you do. Phoenix, good luck to you. And Dominique, thank you. No other items coming before us. This meeting is adjourned.
That is the final committee meeting of the day. Council will meet at 5 o'clock in special session. Thank you.
Yep, I gotta go home.